Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the drama that's still unfolding in the gubernatorial or the governor's election in Arizona in the United States. Now, just to sort of give a little bit of background, there was quite a popular Republican candidate that was standing for the governorship, named Kari Lake, and certainly most of the polls had her leading by anywhere between sort of 5 to 11%. So you'd think on the face of it, she would have won handsomely against the Democrat candidate who had been the Secretary of State, but did very little campaigning and refused to debate her Republican opponent. And so it seemed rather strange that the Democrat got up in what appeared to be a reasonably close race. Like there was, I think there wasn't even 1% in it. So, but there was quite a bit of controversy because in the primarily Republican heavy districts, and only in those districts, the voting machines and the voting printers and the voting tabulators and the vote counting registration process, even the ballot printing process, there were, it's alleged, about 30% of those machines weren't working for a few hours on the day of the election. So on the basis of those concerns, which are legitimate concerns, the Attorney General, or I think it actually might be the Assistant Attorney General, is not going to certify the elections until there's as I understand it, a series of questions that have been posed to the board the board that oversees the voting process. And the questions being put to that board saying, well, what was going on, what happened, and what reasonably could be believed to be the impact on the election and its outcome. Now, those are quite reasonable questions, by the way. I probably would have gone a little bit further if I was asking the questions, but look, those as a start, those are good enough. Now, one presupposes, and I don't know this, we're now speculating, but if the answers are unsatisfactory, or indeed if the answers suggest or imply that there were a significant number of voters that may have been, on balance of probability, disenfranchised, then the issue comes up of should there be, for example, should there be a recount? Again, there's it's only 1% or less than 1%, I think it was, difference in the vote tally anyway, the vote tally that's now not being certified. So if we look at, so just if we do some rough numbers, there's about, I'm rounding numbers out here, but there's 2.6 million people cast their votes for the governor's race in Arizona. And if we look at the amount of voting booths that had technical problems, and they were in Republican districts where there's 60% plus Republican. So I mean, some say it's 65 or 68 or 61%. So, but let's just be conservative and say 60% Republican districts. And if we look at the amount of hours that the machines were down or unworking or working incorrectly, and then we look at the amount of people based on exit polls that came to cast their vote in that time frame, that would suggest that somewhere in the region of 52,000 votes are in question in terms of Republican votes. Now, again, these aren't exact numbers, and they're simply my summation of what those numbers could be, but they'll be within that ballpark. Now, that means that if those votes were either counted incorrectly or perhaps not counted at all or partially counted, that's more than double the difference. That's representing between 2 and 3% of an election swing. Now, if you take some of those votes away from the Democrat and then add them to the Republican Kari Lake, then that would have Kari Lake winning by anywhere between 40 and 60,000 votes, which would be substantially less than any of the polls that I saw would indicate. But let's assume that's the case for the moment. So the situation we've got here, as I see it, is that there's, due to those technical problems, there's quite legitimate, quite reasonable, quite sensible questions that can be asked by any citizen and any group that is concerned with election integrity and how it is seen by the public. That's important. I mean, if you want to instill confidence in any process, whether it's elections or anything else, you don't run around accusing everyone of being a Nazi and then shutting everybody down and shutting down their videos and that sort of thing. You do the complete opposite. So, okay, let's have a look at these concerns. Are they legitimate? Yes, they are. Let's address those, and it may come down to a recount. And I think, if that's the case, then there needs to be scrutineering, as it's called. That is, people on site watching the voting process, and plenty of them, and who will report back and say, yep, this election process was conducted with 100% integrity, and then whoever's the winner is the winner. Democracy is important, so I accept, and the process is important through which democracy is achieved and managed and processed. I accept that there are times, maybe many times, when politicians I don't like, who I think have bad policies, are going to get elected. I completely accept that. Completely accept it, as long as the process has absolute 100% integrity. And that's more important than who wins. Now, there's a lot of people who are people I know, people I have dinner and lunch with, and some people who are extremely well-to-do. They've got their multi-gazillion-dollar yacht in the harbour and all this sort of thing. I'm not in that financial league, by the way. But and they say, well, hey, democracy doesn't really matter as long as we get rid of Donald Trump. Who cares? Gee whiz. So people have different views of democracy. To me, democracy is that the people decide, and sometimes the decision that people make isn't one that I agree with. But there you go. I accept that. I don't particularly like it, by the way, but I do accept it, and it's a price I am willing to pay for in return. I demand 100% election integrity. So that's it. So if that is the case and there is a recount, then the scrutineering, and I've personally done scrutineering on election days, so I know how it works. But the scrutineering, that is the scrutinising of each vote if necessary, should be part of that, and that should be built into the process. So it is absolutely unimpeachable in terms of the level of integrity. And again, now I don't know if there are votes that weren't counted or miscounted or undercounted or any of those things. But given those technical problems that the Maricopa County election board had with their tabulating and printing machines, there are questions to be answered, and it is reasonable for any citizen and any media outlet to accept that those questions are legitimate, and we should work through them in a completely transparent manner and come out the other end. Now, I've noticed the Republicans claimed in Maricopa County that they had lawyers flying left, right, and centre, and they were going to do this and they were going to do that. I mean, maybe they did. They seem to have been rather ineffective in my view. Now, maybe they're ineffective because the Democrats made sure that their lawsuits were shepherded in front of radical activist Democrat judges and neutralised that way. And that's a favourite globalist leftist approach to dealing with legal issues. But when you look at the response of in any situation, the response of the globalist Democrat lawyers is swift, decisive, vicious. I mean, they get results, these guys, and their goon squad's moving into Arizona to try and legally intimidate election officials to give the verdict that the Democrats want. Now, one of the, I guess, major concerns that the globalist leftist Democrats have, that if Kari Lake does get up as governor, then she's going to engage in quite a rigorous root and branch reform of the electoral system in Arizona, and also possibly go and revisit in detail the previous elections, and that's something they don't want. That they'd be willing to suffer a great deal to make sure that doesn't happen. So there's various forces at work that want certain outcomes, and what effect, if any, they have on election outcomes is hard to say. But let's see what happens there. Is there going to be a recount? Will it be lawyers and judges that decide it in court? I think the only way to really do it is to do a recount with 100% tight, almost audit levels type scrutiny, and whoever wins. And that's my view of how it should move forward. But let's see how we go. You've been with Tacitus today and your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.